With us this evening are the candidates for Chautauqua County Family Court, Judith Clare and Philip Calla. All candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to a question they received prior to this meeting and include a brief presentation discussing their qualifications. After the opening statements, candidates will have the ability to question one another, and members of the audience will be urged to ask questions of any of the candidates or all of the candidates. If a question is addressed to a specific candidate, others will be welcome to add comments or replies of their own. Candidates will also be able to rebut or challenge one another, and each rebuttal will be limited to 1 minute, and there will be 1 minute for a closing statement. And this is the first question. What is the most urgent problem facing the family court, and what is the first step you would take to solve it if elected? By lottery, the first responder is Judith Clare.
Hello, my name is Judith Clare, and I serve as Chautauqua County Family Court Judge. Nearly all matters in family court are urgent: custody, domestic violence, paternity, delinquency, guardianships, child abuse, foster care, termination of parental rights, grandparents' rights, adoptions. So I would say that the breakdown of the family in society is the most urgent problem. Family court differs from other courts in that unless the issues that bring people to the court are addressed, the same people will return with the same issues. Parents fighting over custody of a 5-day-old baby are likely to return before that child turns 21. When a parent is charged with neglect, unless that parent is able to address the problems that brought them to court, it is likely that the parent will be back on a new neglect petition. A family court judge should address as many of the complex issues of each case as creatively and comprehensively as possible in order to properly serve the public. This is what I have attempted to do during the past 10 years. My hope is to further expand, strengthen, and refine the initiatives that I have already brought to family court and to continue to work on the ones that are in the early stages. I have worked in family law for 33 years. I was in private practice for 16 years. During that time, I handled hundreds of cases in all areas of family law and tried hundreds of cases to completion. I continuously served on the Law Guardian panel, offering to represent children in court. I was listed in Who's Who in American Law and represented New York at the White House Conference on Families. I was then chosen by Judge Joseph Gerasi to work as his confidential law clerk and matrimonial referee for 7 years until I was elected family court judge.
Thank you very much. Mr. Calla.
Good evening, and thank you. I think the judge and I both agree that the most urgent issue that's before the family court is each and every one of the approximately 4,000 cases that come through the court every year. To each of the parties and their representatives, the attorneys who represent them, those indeed are the most urgent things before the court. Of course, what we're talking about is what administratively can we do as a judge to make the court's delivery of services and the quality of the services that are delivered as efficient and of as high quality as they can be. I think one of the things that you can do, excuse me, is to get more feedback from the many agencies and their staffs that help the court. Family court is unique in that it has many of these agencies, more that serve the family court than any other court in this county. Those courts are staffed by trained professionals. Many times they see things that they think may make the delivery of services more efficient, and they aren't necessarily invited to share those things. I'm going to put mechanisms into place that will help those workers communicate with the court and make the programs and the way they deliver services more efficient. one of the things, one of the programs that I'm concerned with is drug court, a very worthy court. It's a way to address issues of substance and alcohol abuse. With 4,000 cases that come through that court, I want to increase the number of participants in drug court. Right now, I think there are way too few people who are availing themselves of.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We will now open our meeting to a question and answer format, and we hope some good questions have come to your mind. If you wish to ask a question, I remind you that the microphone is to my left, to the far aisle. And those of you at home, a reminder to call in 467-121.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is a question for both of you, and perhaps we can begin with, alphabetically, Mr. Calla. Of the 18 or more different types of cases that a family court judge must decide, and I emphasize must decide, which do you think you are most competent to decide, and why? That is for both of you.
Thank you.
Of the 18 types of cases, which do you think are you're most competent to decide?
Mr. Calla.
Oh, that's a very good and complicated question. I would think that child custody would probably be the one that I would choose, and the reason why, not only as a father, but as somebody who understands the importance of children in the community and in society in general, I think it's probably one of the most, if not the most, important decisions that family court judges have to make. And because of that, I think it's extremely important that a judge is able to make it correctly. Sometimes those cases are very close calls. Sometimes they're not. But in the difficult cases, those cases where you really must decide where is that child better off, what is the best interest of the child, I think that I'm capable of doing that. I think part of that comes from my background, oddly enough, in the criminal defense practice. I'm exposed to a lot of different family cultures, a lot of different backgrounds. I understand that there are different family cultures, and what may on its face sometimes seem like a situation that may be better or worse for the child, the broader background you have and the broader exposure you have among the community, I think helps the judge to make those kinds of decisions. So, yeah, I would say child custody.
Thank you very much.
The only issue that I had no experience in, it's sort of ironic really, before I became a judge, was that I had never done an adoption before I became a judge, but I had hundreds of cases that I had handled in private practice in all of these areas that I mentioned earlier, in delinquency, paternity, domestic violence, custody, and so I think it would be difficult to single one out and say that I am more qualified in one area than another. If I had to choose one, I would probably also say custody, because of the years that I served as matrimonial referee, which I did for 7 years, and I handled all the divorces at that time, and of course all the custody and visitation issues from beginning to completion. Outside of that, I really can't think of more that I would say on this point, except what I said earlier, that I think all of these issues are urgent, and I would not say that custody is more important than child abuse or domestic violence, or that delinquency is more important than foster care. They're all important, and family court is really unique that way.